Hello, hello. Welcome to The Wait is Over. This is day one, and today we're going to be talking about what, when, where, and actually how to eat. As you're jumping on, say hello and let me know where you're jumping on from. I am in Ontario, Canada, and I am a weight loss coach, a Christian weight loss coach. I have been on my own journey of losing weight and have been able to lose 86 pounds. And I still have over 100 pounds left to lose. Um, and I love that when I mention to people, hey, Tabitha, I love when I mention to people that I'm still on my weight loss journey. Like in the beginning, it was really hard for me to admit that I still had more than 100 pounds to lose. And what I found was the women I work with were so happy to know that I was on the journey with them and that I wasn't a size 3 swimsuit model who had never struggled with weight in her life. So I get where you're at. I get where you're coming from. I understand the struggles of the journey. And yeah. All right. Let me just make sure everything's going here. Oh, good. We got Cindy here. We got Tabitha. Great. All right. So I'm going to get started. Now, I thought there was an option to share my screen, but I'm not seeing it. So we'll just make do. All right. So when it comes to dieting, how many of you have been on a diet in the past, have done a fad diet? Tell me in the comments any of the fad diets that you've done before or any other programs that you've done. I know when I decided to get really serious about losing weight 3 years ago, gosh, I think it's almost, oh gosh, it's like 5 years ago. What happened to me was I had ended up in the hospital in the ICU for 8 days. I was at my highest weight of 330 pounds, and I was in the ICU for 8 days. I was having trouble breathing. They found out that I had an interstitial lung disease, which is quite rare, and there's really no treatment for it other than huge doses of not antibiotics, prednisone, steroids. So I was on 100 milligrams of steroids for a couple of months, and then it took them 14 months to wean me off of it. Grapefruit diet. Oh my gosh, yes, the grapefruit diet. And Weight Watchers. Yes, I've done Weight Watchers before, and Weight Watchers is great. Um, we'll talk a bit about that. So anyway, 5 years ago in the hospital, 8 days in the ICU, that was when I knew it was time to get serious with my health. But come out of the hospital, I'm so confused because I had done Weight Watchers in the past, and then the hospital had me meet with a dietitian. She said a lot of the same things that Weight Watchers said. I had seen a nutritionist, and they do a little bit different than what the dietitian says. I'd gone to a naturopath. I had done many avenues and ended up just being confused. I looked into weight loss surgery, and that didn't seem like an option because the way to eat after the weight loss surgery was so restrictive. And I thought, if I have to eat that way after, I might as well just start eating that way now. And I didn't want to be that restricted. Hey, Jen. So anyway, I did a lot of research and ended up in 2018 coming across health coaching, and I didn't know that was a thing. So I ended up getting my health coach and life coach certification in 2019, and have really been losing the weight since then, and have been able. At one point, I'm going to be honest, at one point I was down 86 pounds. 2020 kind of did me in, and I did put some weight back on, but the scales are going down again. So you know what? I'm struggling just the same way you guys are. So Some of the fad diets or diets that I've looked into, that I know people have been on, that I have tried. There's keto, there's paleo, Atkins, there's shakes, low carb. Cindy said the grapefruit diet. My aunt did a cabbage diet. I did a rice diet one time. There's intermittent fasting. So many different things. Oh yeah, you too. Yeah. So and then there's the programs, right? Like there's Weight Watchers, then there's Noom and Beachbody. Oh, I'm trying to think of what else there is. There's so many programs out there, and so when you look at them all, they all have great things about them. And then you think, oh, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the magic one that's going to help me lose weight. And then you end up just getting confused. Here's something I've noticed with all of the diets, whether it's a fad diet or just a regular diet program, they're all about restrictions. You get a list of foods, maybe a list of foods that you're allowed to eat or a list of foods that you're not allowed to eat. And they're intermittent fasting, there's certain times that you can't eat. Some diets require you to count calories or macros or points, and they can work for anybody, right? The problem is after a while, we get tired of the restrictions, we get tired of having to track everything, and that's when we start to fall off the wagon. Hey, Debbie. So here's a negative truth for you. You don't need to follow a diet, okay? Think about it. You know what foods aren't healthy. You know the foods that aren't going to get you closer to your goal. You don't need, excuse me, you don't need a personally, professionally designed meal plan, and you don't need to follow a restrictive diet. You actually know what to eat. And the problem really is your mindset. You can eat whatever you want. Nothing needs to be off limits unless you choose for it to be off limits. So let's say a vegetarian, obviously a vegetarian is not going to eat meat. The key to losing weight is really portions and moderation and not so much about restriction and deprivation. So Genesis 9 verse 3 says, everything that lives and moves will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. So everything is available for us to eat, but it's not just about um, what you eat. Like I have a client and her friend tells her it's not, there's no junk food, there's only junk quantities. And I love that. I told her I was going to steal it because it's true. It's not the little bit of cake that we have. It's when we have so much cake, right? If we eat this huge piece or we eat half the cake, that's the problem. So, how do you think normal people eat? Now, that could be a loaded question, but let me ask you, do they weigh? Do they measure? Do they count calories, carbs, macros? Are they always dieting or leaving out entire food groups? How does a normal person eat? And the reason I ask this is because one of my clients a few months ago said to me, I just want to feel normal. And so we broke that down and talked about, okay, how does a normal person eat? And she said she defined it as someone who doesn't struggle with their weight, someone who eats what they want without binging or overeating or having large portions all the time. And it's someone who can eat their food, and that's all it is. It's just food. Food is fuel. The food doesn't represent emotion. It doesn't represent stress. It's just fuel for the body. And I love that. So, do we want to eat normal? Like when she said that, it something clicked for all of us in the group. It was like, yeah, normal people, and like I say that in quotes, normal people don't obsess the way, at least the way I do. have done and the way my client has done over food. They they are able to see a piece of cake and have a small piece and that's it. They're able to say no thank you. My daughter can do that. She can have chocolate sitting in her room and not touch it. Like that's what normal is. It doesn't, you're not controlled by the food. So 1 Corinthians 10 verse 31 says, whatever you eat or drink, whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. So when I work with my clients, they get to eat whatever they want, however they want, because each body is unique. And so each plan needs to be unique. I have a couple of clients who do Weight Watchers. I have a client who is doing her plan through a dietitian. I have another client who's a vegetarian. So everybody's different. And what works for one may not work for another. 1 Corinthians 10:23 and 1 Corinthians 6:12. You say, I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. You say, I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. And even though I am allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. That really stood out to me today. So you can eat whatever you want. The problem is when that food enslaves us, when it becomes our obsession, our addiction, and we become mastered by our food instead of us being able to master the food. We're enslaved by the binges, and that's a problem. If we can get ourselves to a point of where we feel normal, then that's where a transformation can start. So going to a buffet and knowing that you don't have to eat everything on the buffet. Going to, let's say, well, we just had a long weekend, so going to a party and knowing that you don't have to eat all of the food, knowing that you don't have to eat huge portions because nothing is restricted. So sometimes we eat all of that food because we feel like, I'm not going to be able to have this again in a long time. So I might as well make it worth my while. Or we have that mindset of, well, I'm cheating today, so I might as well make it worth my while. But if you can eat without restriction, then there's no cheating. And you can have that food whenever you want. So you don't need to binge on it the occasional time that you have it. So tell me in the comments, what do you feel mastered by or enslaved to? Is there any particular area of your life where you're feeling enslaved? Any particular type of food? So what I do when I work with my clients, we break down those beliefs that they have. And we break down the belief that they're mastered by the food. And we work on them being freed from the hold that that food has on them. So today I'm going to give you some strategies. Carbs. Oh gosh, yeah. Carbs are a big one for a lot of people. And you know what? Carbs aren't bad. The problem with carbs is it's more the breads, you know, the things that are made, or the pastas, the things that are made with white flour. Those are the bad carbs. Carbs in and of themselves are not bad for you in moderation, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So where am I? So today I'm going to give you some strategies to help you, but you need to understand that mindset is going to be the key to losing weight for the last time. If you don't work on your mindset, you're going to come back to the same place over and over and over again. You need to change your relationship with food so that you're no longer mastered by it, but instead you become the master. You get to have control over what you eat. So you may be thinking, oh, I'm on a mini retreat right now and I've noticed my proportions and that I can have smaller portions and still be okay. Yeah. And I've seen what you've been eating. It's great. I love it. Yeah, we don't have to have huge portions. And again, we're going to talk about that a little bit tomorrow on how to know how much to have to eat. So you might be thinking, if I don't count calories or points or restrict foods, if I get to eat what I want, then how am I going to be able to lose weight? Here is how I eat, and it's how many of my clients eat. And remember again that each person's unique. So not everyone will follow this particular plan, just like not all of my clients follow this plan. But I will tell you, 3 of my clients have, since working with me, have gone to see a dietitian. And the dietitian told them to eat the same way that I'm going to tell you how to eat. And even one of the handouts that I give my clients, the dietitian gave them a very similar one. And so she came to our call and she said, I just spent $60 for her to tell me what you've been telling me for months. And the reason why is because when I went to a dietitian, she actually gave me this plate. So this is the plan that I follow. And when you can follow this plate method, you don't need to weigh, you don't need to measure, you don't need to count points and macros and carbs and you don't need to count the protein, you don't need to track. So the basic idea is, first off, use a smaller plate. So you notice, like, look at the size of this plate, right? Most dinner plates are a little bit bigger. So this plate is already smaller than your normal dinner plate. But here's how it works. So a quarter of your plate is going to be your starch, a quarter of it is going to be the protein, and half of it is going to be vegetables. Now, vegetables and fruit can be interchangeable. So you could do half of it with vegetables, you could do half of it with fruit. Let's say if it's breakfast, then like a banana typically would be this part. You could do a cup of strawberries, or you can split it half and half. The fruits and vegetables are pretty easy going. This is the key part. Let's say you're having pasta, and pasta should fit here, not here. Okay? This is the problem when your portion sizes are too large. And basically, that's it. It's honestly that easy. Imagine the freedom of not having to weigh and measure, to count calories, all of that stuff. If you can eat from the basic food groups 80 to 90% of the time, and sugar is not a food group, then you're going to lose weight. And if you follow this plate method. Now, if you, in the beginning, I had to have snacks. And so and especially because I was on the high doses of prednisone and it messed up my blood sugars, I'm diabetic. So I was having 3 snacks a day. And so then you just have 1 or 2 of the food groups for your snacks. Here's the great thing though, is as time went on and I was feeling better, and my hormones were balancing out, then I didn't need the snacks. And so now I just eat 3 times a day and I'm satisfied. And as you balance out your hormones, you're not going to have the cravings like you have in the beginning. Um, Now, if you're someone that does feel the need to track, I do have a couple of handouts that I can give you. One is just check marks. So it'll have the food groups in each, like breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack, and the 7 days of the week. So you can go through that and you just check off whatever you've eaten, um, like the food group. Then there's another one, and this one is a food mood journal. So this is a good one for you to track on how food is making you feel. So this one you would actually write down what you ate, because what you're going to notice if you use this for a couple of weeks, you're going to start to notice there are certain foods that make you feel tired. And again, we're going to talk about that a little bit more tomorrow when we talk about energy. Um, so here's the other thing. People quite often think that they have to they have to get everything ready. So right now it's, what is today? Monday. So they think, okay, well, I'm going to start next Monday. I'm going to make sure I have all the right groceries. I'm going to clean out my cupboards. And what happens? You end up eating all the junk food in your house. because you're setting yourself up for restriction. So I got to get rid of all the junk food because I'm not going to be allowed to have it. So already you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's not the way we need to do it. You can have the junk food, but you are just going to have smaller portions. Um yeah, so I have in my notes here, you're allowed to have chips, just don't eat the whole bag. I had a issue with a chocolate bar one time. I bought dark chocolate because dark chocolate is really good for you, and I ate the entire bar because I had that deprivation mentality where, oh, I don't know when I'm going to be able to have it again. Well, now I just keep dark chocolate in the house, and it's actually recommended that you have an ounce of dark chocolate a day. It's got antioxidants and lots of good things. It's good for your brain. It's good for your heart health. Um, so when I realized this isn't the last meal, I can have this every day if I want, then that urgency to eat it all was gone. Messy action is better than perfect inaction. So start now using the foods that you have already in the house. Do the best with what that you can with what you have instead of waiting until everything is perfect, because that perfection is what keeps us from starting. When you begin to use food as fuel, your body will crave junk food less often. So when you start eating the foods that are actually giving you nutrition, then you're not going to have the cravings. Part of the reason why we have cravings is because we don't have enough nutrition in our bodies. We're not getting enough vitamins and nutrients. So the food mood journal would also help with that, because then you're going to be able to recognize, oh, okay, I didn't eat as much today, and so now I'm having cravings, right? So the next question, tell me in the comments, how long does it take you to eat a meal? Let's go with dinner, because that typically tends to be a larger meal. So how long does it take you to eat your dinner? The science is it takes your brain and your stomach 20 minutes to connect. So if you eat your meal in 5 minutes, it's going to take your brain another 15 minutes to recognize that you have eaten that food and that you're satisfied. So in that 5 minutes, you eat everything, and then your brain hasn't told you that you're full yet, so you're going to want to eat seconds and sometimes thirds. And then all of a sudden the 25-minute mark comes up, and now you're stuffed. We don't want to do that. Instead, we want to try and stretch our meals out to 20 minutes long. So how do you do that? Especially if you're a fast eater. First thing to do, yeah, Shirley, I hate it, but I'm trying to slow down. I know it's hard. It is. But the first thing you can do is chew your food. So your saliva has digestive enzymes, and those enzymes are meant to break down the food. So if your mouth can do all the work before it gets to your stomach, then your stomach is able to assimilate the vitamins and the nutrients from the food. If you're taking big bites and not chewing it enough, now your stomach has to work at breaking down that food. And eventually your stomach's going to get tired, and it's just going to go and put it into fat stores. But instead, if you chew it all in your mouth and chew it well, then now your stomach can do what it's meant to do, and it can assimilate the vitamins and the nutrients. Think of a blender. If you put large chunks of fruit in the blender and then turn it on, it's going to get the little bit at the bottom, but then eventually, oh, someone said, oh, Aja, I'm like a vacuum cleaner. Yeah, I was too. So if you put the big chunks of fruit in the blender and then you turn it on, you're going to get a little bit pureed at the bottom, but then you're going to get all these big chunks at the top, and they're not going to blend up. And that's the same in our stomach. You swallow these big chunks of food, a little bit gets digested, and then the rest just, like, this is exactly how I imagine it, just going into fat stores. So if you put smaller pieces in that blender, then it's going to puree better, same as our stomach. How else can you slow down? Try putting your fork down between bites, or at the very least, don't have it poised at your mouth, ready to take the next bite. I was trying to finish my dinner and I took 20 minutes, but I had a couple bites left before we came on live here. And so I was trying to finish it and I caught myself. I had my fork and it was at my mouth while I was still chewing. Don't do that. Even if you don't put your fork down, don't put it up to your mouth until you're done chewing what's in your mouth. And then take smaller bites or use a smaller spoon or a smaller fork. Although I have been doing that, but I find that I spill a lot more because the smaller fork doesn't fit the larger pieces of food, and so it falls, but it is still a way to slow down. I do use a smaller spoon when I'm having my oatmeal in the morning. The next thing is, where do you eat? Where do you eat? Tell me that. Tell me in the comments where you eat your meals. Sitting at the table will cause you to be more mindful. If you're sitting in front of the TV or eating in the car or on the go, then you're not really tasting the food and you're not being mindful of how much you're eating. Have you ever sat down with a bag of chips and then before you know it, you look down and the whole bag of chips is gone and you're thinking, did I even taste that? Like, how many of those chips did I actually savor and taste? Chances are, most of it you didn't taste because it was mindless eating. So if you can create a rule for yourself that everything goes on a plate and you eat everything at the table, that's going to help you be more mindful of what you're eating and more mindful of your portions. Um, so if you are a snacker while you're cooking and you keep snacking things and tasting, put out a small plate or a bowl, and instead of putting that bite in your mouth, put it in the bowl. And when you're done cooking, see how much is left in that bowl and realize how many calories just that snacking can add. The next time you want to eat a bag of chips, put them in a bowl, portion them out. You put them in a small bowl, sit down at the table, and eat them there. Don't do anything else except eat the chips. Don't play games on your phone. Don't do anything that's going to distract you, but actually eat those chips and be mindful of every bite that you're taking and chew the bite. You're going to find that if you make that rule where you have to sit down at the table and eat, you're probably not going to want to do that as often because it's annoying. I've done it, and I sat down and I'm eating the chips, and I thought, oh, this is boring. I don't want to do this. The reason a lot of times we eat the junk food in front of the TV is we just want something to do with our hands. So sitting at the table helps you to be more mindful, helps you to slow down, helps you to not just mindlessly eat. And if you decide I'm going to have a snack and I'm going to put it on a plate and sit at the table and you immediately think, oh, that's going to take too long, I don't want to do it, then maybe you're not eating because you're hungry. Maybe you're having that snack for another reason. So another thing to think about is when you go to the cupboard, and typically the junk food is in the cupboard, right? When you go to that cupboard to find something to eat, ask yourself, is this mouth hunger, like you just feel like munching on something? Is it heart hunger? Are there emotions or stress happening that are causing you to eat? Or is it actually stomach hunger? Are you actually hungry? And chances are, if it's a mouth hunger or a heart hunger, if you go do something else for a little while and come back, you're probably not going to want it in the same intensity that you wanted it when you first went to the cupboard. So get in the habit of asking yourself, is it heart hunger, mouth hunger, or stomach hunger? And then, like I said, usually the craving goes away. So that's it for today. To sum up, your plate, again, is quarter, quarter, half, 20-minute meals, chewing, oh, and breathing. Yeah, I didn't tell you this. So, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, I believe tomorrow. about slowing down when you eat or breathing before you eat because um, when you're in the stressed out state, then your digestion doesn't work properly. So taking some deep breaths, making sure that you're breathing while you're eating, not inhaling like the vacuum, but breathing. Shirley says, I find it cools down too much when I put the fork down. Yeah, um, but again, if you've got a smaller portion, then um, it's not going to cool down the same. Now, maybe you could even go half of that plate and then go up for seconds and have the second half of the plate. So a smaller portion is so you eat that smaller portion in 10 minutes and then the other smaller portion in 10 minutes. Um, Make sure you have a relaxing atmosphere. Be mindful, everything on a plate and everything at the table. So try that tomorrow when you're having your meals and try doing the quarter half and see how that goes for you. And let me know how the chewing goes. So what I want you to do is actually when you sit down to eat, if you're eating with somebody else, pay attention to how many chews they take per bite. And just count and do it as a fun game for yourself. Or catch yourself and count how many chews you take to eat and then try and do it more on the 20 to 30 chews per bite. I think I have everything. Um, yeah, I think that's it. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about how to increase your energy. And I, if you wake up in the morning and you're feeling exhausted, then this is going to be one for you. Okay, it's really going to help you. All right, so that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be sending out an email in case some of you came on here late. Then you'll be able to watch the replay, and I will send you a reminder tomorrow. You are very welcome, girls, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.